2.
Welcome to the School of Hard Thoughts podcast. I think this is episode 6. My name's Adrian, and as usual, we are coming to you from Famous Sam's at Golf Links in Kolb in Tucson, Arizona. 7129 East Golf Links Road. The best place, the absolute best place to watch sports in Tucson, especially here on the east side. They have, especially football, they have the NFL Sunday Ticket. They have about 6.7 billion television screens.
That's an accurate estimate.
Yeah, it is a good. I counted them once, and then so like if you can come in and pick whatever game you want, and
they're super cool about curtailing to your desires when it comes to sports. If you want to watch the PGA, if you want to watch this college game, that NFL game, they will seat you at the right place, or if you're already at a seat, they will change the TV for you.
Yes, they will.
And they've been, and I'm Green, by the way. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Green.
Hey, Ace. How you doing? Long time no see.
I'm good. I'm going to abandon you while you talk for a minute.
It feels like I've been with you all day.
Yeah, we did a podcast earlier. Why don't you talk about that?
We do a little bit of a podcast earlier. We had a good friend of Adrian's and mine now. He's now my good friend. His name is Preston. Young man that has done more in 29 years than I have just done, period. And he did a lot to espouse kind of the BS kind of stuff that we're hearing from the media nowadays about millennials. He is a very motivated young man. He's proactive. He's not in his basement playing video games and just complaining on Facebook all the time. He is out there. He's voting. He is intubating people. He is.
He wishes he was intubating people.
Well, you know what I mean, though. He's working. He's a working young man. He's a professional, and I think that he's a good representative of his generation. I don't think it's all the doom and gloom about the millennials that we've been trained to hear and to react upon.
Yeah, you're definitely preaching to the choir on that, because I don't like the way. So I can understand using a generation as a measure of demographics.
Sure.
A scientific measure, a way to look at
data.
History, for data. But when we look at it as a social construct, when we're like, those millennials or those baby boomers, or because it goes
Gen
both
Xers.
ways. Yeah, Gen Xers are
You Gen
fucking
Xers.
assholes. But it goes both ways, because it's like it's like, but every generation has, the older generation has talked shit about the younger generation,
and every generation has its gems and its turds.
Right. I mean, it's if you look at every group, there's going to be people who are world-class scholars and soldiers and people who are heroes, and then you're going to have bums that are.
And some of them are going to be Mansons.
Yeah,
some of them.
Some of them are going to be serial killers, and some of them are going to live in their mom's basement for their entire life and sponge off of her. And we're in the American Southwest. There's not so many basements. It would be the add-on to the double wide right.
that you're living in. And some of those add-ons are really nice. I can tell you that. But yes, School of Hard Thoughts, thank you for tuning in. Of course, we appreciate your listenership. We want you to share us on the Facebook, on all the social medias. Please let your friends know that there's a couple of amateur dudes talking in a bar about current events. Speaking of which, there's a lot of people headed this way. Ace?
Oh yeah, I'm worried about that.
There's a couple people headed to our border. I honestly...
The so-called caravan.
It is but it's more of a migration.
Right.
All species, most
I don't know about all
multicellular,
species.
Most multicellular species have a migration, have a traveling pattern.
Right.
Why should humans be any different?
Right. Well, this is more like they're fleeing.
Oh, I see.
They're fleeing because
they're not just following magnetic north for better weather.
It's they were living in oppression and violence and danger that can arguably be pointed to U.S. policies in the past.
We haven't helped the situation down there at all, that's for sure.
And, people are kind of up in arms, and apparently they're going to be at the border, right for the midterms. So I guess you're going to speed walk because they're about 1,000 miles away right now.
I guess each one of those is descended from Steve Prefontaine because that's making some mileage. No, they're still 2+ months away.
Yeah, they're fleeing, and their numbers are reducing. And now, if they were fleeing from the Cylon tyranny, you'd be on their side.
No, you say that, but I'm all about assimilation, man. Resistance is futile.
The Borg.
Oh, right.
Oh,
sorry.
You Whovians.
Oh. I just jump back and forth between universes. It's so easy for us Whovians. These people that are fleeing, like you said.
Right.
And that's exactly what it is.
And let's be careful with that. Let's be careful with that. These people.
Those people.
Those people.
And when I say they, I really mean them.
I know what you meant, but it's kind of like...
It's not like... Oh, okay. I see this. It's almost like I'm saying you
like
people.
You people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
You people, you short fucking bald fuckers. But that's kind of both of us.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I get it.
I get it. These people.
These humans, these displaced, wonderful human beings, probably most of them are wonderful.
Right, and that's just it. They're not, we can't say that they're wonderful or they're not wonderful, but they're just like any other group of people, except that they are fleeing for their lives.
It wasn't that long ago that some of my ancestors, the Celts, were in the same literal boat trying to come over.
Right. Yeah, we talked about this last time.
And there was some hassle.
There was a little bit of hassle.
But here I am, and I'm a happy citizen, more or less, and I am a citizen.
You vote, you pay your taxes.
Absolutely.
Pay your parking tickets.
I do not do that at all. I don't park.
Go to jury duty.
Yeah, exactly. Go to jury duty, and I dress up as Leia, so I'm immediately dismissed.
Yeah, I just let them know I used to be a cop, and they're like, check, please.
I just show up with pornography, and they usually escort me right out of the courthouse. But better than being kept there.
Yeah.
These people that are coming up, those people that are coming up, these humans that are fleeing, like you said,
right?
They do deserve asylum.
Right. Well,
I think we are
some
obligated.
Of them probably deserve asylum. I mean, but the thing is. Again, with the people that are all up in arms about this, and then the propaganda machine that is, trying to scare people into being up in arms about it.
Sure.
What they're doing is they're taking a situation and turning it into something else. Fox News has used the word invasion to describe this.
Well, of course, because they're a sensationalist kind of rag.
Yeah. So
Fox started off with The Simpsons and Married with Children.
Yeah, but Fox and Fox News are like kind of two different entities.
It's all owned by Rupert Murdoch, man, and that guy knows how to make his money, and he's done a great job of it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, mission accomplished, Rupert. Hey, we would love you to come on our podcast if you have, if you have the time. Oh, we'll meet you.
Yeah, we'll come to you.
We'll come to you. We'll meet in international waters.
We're not coming to him.
Why
you think
not?
We're coming out of that building?
Hey, man.
Hey, they went in the building to see Rupert Murdoch. They weren't on the guest list. We don't know what you're talking about.
There wouldn't even be any record of us. Our social security numbers would be gone.
Yeah.
The Matrix would scrub us. There is a sentiment, though you're right, in America that it kind of seems anti-immigration.
Well, there are politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, who have run on that. That's That was Donald Trump's initial platform. That's been one of his campaign promises. That's been like the linchpin of his philosophy. And because he was getting away from it is one of the reasons that Steve Bannon left. But you can go back and find a video on YouTube of Senator Barack Obama. He was a senator at the time, saying that if you come in this country illegally, you should be prosecuted. And, Zaira Olivier and I were talking about this. And, she has a very, very informed perspective on it.
Well, she's lived some of it.
Yeah, and, I think maybe it's time that we start looking at borders more in a casual way. I think we should protect ourselves. I don't think we should let terrorists or criminals in. And
borders aren't going to stop that, though. You're talking about ideals. I mean,
Yeah, well,
a terrorist
I mean-
can be okay. So, a terrorist can be a white supremacist, which there is.
which most terrorists in the United States are.
Oh,
If you
statistically,
go by the FBI
Death count.
right? If the FBI has already said this repeatedly for the past decade, that the most prevalent form of terrorism is white nationalist terrorism.
And as I'm reading articles today, there's a good one by New York Times. There's another one, a good one by the Washington Post. There is, on the law enforcement side, almost zero protocol to deal with white supremacy.
Yeah, well,
I mean, why is that?
when
You've worked in law enforcement.
I can tell
Adrian.
you when you look at law enforcement, there's a difference between conceptual rights and that part of the legal system and laws that are enforceable. So it's kind of hard to enforce the First Amendment.
I get that because one person's hate is another person's hate. And hate speech is actually, as you were...
It's protected, yeah.
It's actually protected by the First Amendment.
If you look there, the most recent case was in 2017, reporting by Eugene Volokh of the Washington Post. And, Justice Alito and Kennedy were both talking about Mattal versus Tam. And basically they found that it doesn't matter what you say, hate speech is not an exception to the First Amendment. There's a difference between hate speech and a threat. There's a difference between using hate speech and then going out and committing a hate crime. And that's where law enforcement has to come in. So yeah, it is kind of reactionary, but to be proactive would be violating the Constitution.
At what point, though, Adrian, does it become a yelling fire in a crowded theater type of thing? Because that's not legal.
No, that's not legal, because it presents a clear and present danger.
Danger. Great movie, great book.
Great movie. Great book, even better book. The book is amazing.
I do think that a lot of police forces around the country right now are kind of scratching their heads because it is starting to represent a credible threat to the function of civil day-to-day actions. I mean, you do have a lot of people nowadays that are threatening each other. And good Lord, even the kicker for the damn Green Bay Packers is getting threats.
Right.
For his family.
And that's, again, the law can deal with threats.
Okay.
That kind of thing. But if you say that President Obama is a mongrel and the N-word, okay.
You're allowed to just say that.
Yeah, you're allowed to say that.
So,
now,
and I understand
but if you
that.
say that, if you say that and then you go out and kill 3 black people with your AR-15 or whatever, then they can use those words against you. And they can use those words to...
Anything you say or do can be...
Right. Well, not only that, it's how you justify charging someone with a specific crime. So... A quick legal lesson, especially about criminal law.
Law enforcement, I didn't realize law enforcement was so amorphous on certain levels.
Yeah, so a quick academic lesson about criminal law.
Teach us, Mr. Ace.
Criminal law is written in elements. So if you have the elements for a crime, then a officer or any law enforcement official can put those elements together and say, we're charging you with this. For example, and every state's different, but for example, the general law for burglary is enter and remain a building or residence with the intent to commit a crime therein. Okay. So
that's a B&E.
If a guy breaks in, or a girl,
Wait, it can, girls are criminals too?
Yeah. girls can be criminals too.
Some of the best
So,
ones.
some of the hottest ones.
Oh.
Jessica, never mind. I was going to go into Jessica Chastain and Molly's game, and then I realized my
That's
wife
for
would come looking for
School
me.
of Hard Thoughts After Dark.
We should do that.
We should.
Anyway, but so if you can find those elements in a crime, so you arrest somebody coming out of a building and they have a stereo or something in their hands and it has a serial number that matches up to inventory of that store, then guess what? They entered, they remained. The intent was to steal that object.
And they burgled.
So that's burglary.
Yeah.
That's the way criminal law works.
So it's very hard to nail down. It's like pinning Jello to a wall when it comes to hate speech. Then,
yeah,
because some of the stuff is inflammatory, but in the scenario, the specific instance, that moment in time, they're not actually breaking any law.
No, inflammatory is not a crime. It's not just actions, because obviously words can be a crime. You know, if I were to threaten somebody and they thought I could carry out that threat and they were actually afraid, in most states that's either terroristic threatening or assault or,
sure.
You know, it depends. So, but
it's
it
an
has
offense.
to be right.
It is an actual categorical offense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's normally a misdemeanor, but
Right.
you know.
But it's still, something that's worth keeping track of.
Yeah, but whether
Well,
or not when you look at guys like Alex Jones, you know, and
that's what I'm saying is that
his craziness.
there seems to be a lack of accountability when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to keeping track of instances like Alex Jones.
Yeah,
or,
but see, if you look at Alex Jones,
or what happened
he
in
said
Gainesville,
a lot
Florida.
of things. What Alex Jones said a lot of things, and he's actually being sued for it, and he's actually been deplatformed.
Well,
And I have
because he didn't.
a whole different take on people being quote unquote deplatformed, but
Is that like prima nocta, like getting deflowered? Or?
but it's still not a crime. It's still not anything that law enforcement can get involved.
Law enforcement cannot, but a corporation can, because if you violate their terms of service.
Yes, and that's what
that's what happened to
basically
Mr.
everybody,
Jones.
YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everybody said, Alex Jones,
Listen, dude.
you got to go.
Well, and because he violated their terms of service, and because he's his own entity, he's a very powerful entity in his own right. He has a lot of tinfoil hat wearing, very paranoid, full of fear kind of followers. To which I might want to address: get help. It's okay to
That is
admit.
always so much. That is better than, way, way, way better than what I always say. Because I always just say, kill yourself.
Which is so funny because you're like in the medical field.
Well, I'm in the medical field, and I'm a survivor of multiple suicides in my friends and family. So,
Well,
people
yeah.
would think, yeah, you think Adrian be sensitive to that? No. First of all, it's a
Here
joke.
I am.
Second of all,
Here I am,
really, if you're that guy that thinks Alex Jones is telling the truth,
And here I am,
kill
a
yourself.
professional drinker, a lifelong follower of Hunter S. Thompson. And I'm like, no, guys, it's gonna be okay, guys. Let's just hug it out. No, but you do need to get help, because I do think Alex Jones, 45, a lot of people that just unabashedly support, would shoot their family members in the face over something somebody says, over their devotion to somebody. That's a disorder. That's borderline personality disorder.
I think what you're looking for is some type of ability to intervene or monitor the way we speak to each other. Because the way we speak to each other lately, I mean, you go on Facebook and you get into arguments with either friends or family or people you don't even know.
No.
You just happen to be in the same thread.
Oh, that's the best part about Facebook.
Yeah, and then,
And I will admit to this, I love trolling people, dude. I love baiting people and trolling them, because I do not take myself so seriously. I understand that I am a human and I am full of errors and flaws, and the opinions I have and the views I have right now will not be the same 10 years from now, because I'll have other data. Like, my core fundamentals will probably be the same.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, I'm okay with changing my opinions based on data, based on logic and reason.
But I think there's a whole third of this country that doesn't base their opinions on data. I think they base it on fear. I think they base it on what they're fed by the, you know, one or two mediums of choice
Yes.
that they use, and you know, the cult of 45.
We are a kingdom of fear. We have been for probably about the last 20 years, right before 9/11.
Yeah.
And it's fostered and fueled not only our media, or who we adulate, who we adore on MTV and network news and stuff, but it also has informed our police policy, and our actual legislative branches have been manipulated and influenced by fear. By fear in general, fear of xenophobia, first of all, fear of change, fear of people that are different from you,
fear of foreigners,
but also fear of each other. That's the thing that surprises me most. In the last 2.5 years, in the last 18 to 24 months, we are afraid of each other. We don't even have to look across the seas or borders for fear anymore, or for terrorism. It's each other.
Right, and you just have to look at the ability to reach out and talk to somebody immediately. And I think that's part of the change. Part of the change was, you know, you might see somebody in a bar and kind of know they're not the type of person you want to hang out with.
Sure.
And maybe hear them say something that you don't want to. And you could engage them, or maybe you don't engage them.
I see.
But what has happened is, because of the internet, you know, you have a bunch of people with the same kind of crazy that are easily accessible. So it's like, oh my God, you're crazy like I am? That's awesome. And you know,
I also believe the Earth is flat.
Right,
Holy shit!
Right, and in good scenarios, it's like, okay, well, you know, we both like the same musical artists. We both are into the same video game. We're both into, you know, science. But
Sure.
in the political game, it's, you know, the narrative. It's like, you know, foreigners are coming to get our jobs, and they're coming to rape our women, and they're coming to, you know, kill us, and, you know, black men are dangerous, and they're lazy, and Mexicans are dangerous and lazy, and they're going to bring their drugs and their crime up. And it's like, have you seen Mexico City?
Right.
Yeah, like, they don't give a fuck.
No, they got their own scene.
Yeah, and again, getting back to what I always get back to, if we were worried about the real problems that are going to be facing us, our page just posted a article yesterday about the first fully automated factory with no humans. Now, it's not in the United States, but it
doesn't matter if it's in the United States.
It's online. It's online. It's fully automated, and it's going to be basically handling shipping.
When you're dealing with autonomy in AI doesn't have sovereignty. AI doesn't have a concept of deity or sovereignty. It just simply is.
Right.
And honestly, you know, to be very Whovian about it, maybe that was the human's charge this whole time, was to create a pure form of life, which is AI.
That is actually, there are people who are seriously talking about it, and that's one of the things that on one side people are afraid of, and on the other side it's like, well, you know, maybe we were put here, our purpose, the reason we have consciousness, the reason we develop tools, the reason we have opposable thumbs is so that we could create AI eventually.
We could manipulate the natural
and then
world.
AI would replace us.
And, you know, I wish him every blessing. I honestly do.
It's the same way I feel about First Contact. It's like, you know, First Contact, I don't think it's going to be...
No, it's going to be...
First of all, I don't think it's going to happen.
Not in our lifetime, or at all, honestly.
I don't think it's going to happen at all. I think scientifically the distances are too great. I think we have the physics right. I think the distances are too great. the amount of energy that you would need.
Well, and if you look into it, if you really want to get into it, it's called the Fermi paradox.
Right.
If there really is an endless, boundless universe, where is everybody? Why is everything so silent?
Because it's endless and boundless.
Exactly. And we're kind of hanging out in this one carbon atom in a sea of other shit. So yeah, of course there's other shit going on, but it's not within our time and space. So it's like trying to disprove God.
Right. And you don't have
You can't. You don't have to.
Right.
Because you can't, and it's a statistical impossibility that you're going to run in. Although I really did like Star Trek when they ran into that what was that like column of light or something? Was that Star Trek 4 or 3?
The one that was telling that it was God?
Yeah.
Yeah, Star Trek 4 is horrible.
But it was just some sort of gas or
maybe it was Star Trek 5. Let's see.
Email us. Let us know.
No, you shouldn't. You've got a Trekkie right here.
No, because
so Star
that's
Trek
totally
1,
not the Enterprise tattooed on
Star
it
Trek,
right there.
Star Trek 2 is Wrath of Khan. Star Trek 3 is Search for Spock. It's 5.
Is
it's
it 5?
Yeah, because 4 is The Voyage Home.
Oh, right.
So it's the odd number Star Trek movies that are horrible.
From Akron, Ohio or something? Isn't he from Ohio?
Who?
Kirk? Or Iowa?
No, he's from Iowa.
Iowa.
He only works in space.
Good answer. Let's see if it's on the boards. School of Hard Thoughts, I want to say this right now, does support, I'm going to be a little crazy right now, we do support the new Americans on their way. I want to welcome this caravan, these people with open arms.
With the caveat that they go through, the regular asylum checks and balances and make sure that,
you got to be processed.
Something that we do now, or at least we should be doing, but I'm pretty sure we do now, that we didn't do when Ellis Island was a thing, was if you came in on first class or second class, you'd just let you in. If you came in what they called steerage, there was a process to go through. And it was basically about, your skills as a laborer. But one of them was, are you sick? Do you have diseases?
A lot of people were turned away at Ellis Island because of an eye disease that they didn't even know they had.
Right. So they were turned away for diseases, as opposed to what I think we do right now, or we should do right now, and conservatives complain about this because it's like, oh, so we're just going to pay for their health care. Yeah, because they're going to be citizens. They're seeking asylum, they're going to be citizens, and we can afford it, and it's the humane thing to do. So,
the right thing.
It's the right thing to do.
And if you were a follower of Christ, like these people supposedly are, hey, I know you.
No,
don't like
I'm not saying you shouldn't say it. I'm just saying it's just.
But it's part of their platform, Ace.
Their whole platform is about
like this
love
Christian right
and helping the poor, and
but they act contrary to every ideal that their supposed savior stood for.
Yeah. And that's why you'll look at a lot of atheists, and you will find that many of them are very, very, very in-depth Bible scholars. Because they've read the Bible. They've read the Quran. They've read the Hadith.
How about the Tao Te Ching?
I can't even pronounce that.
Tao Te Ching? Oh, it's so great.
Tell me.
It's more of a philosophy. It's kind of a little bit more ambivalent and kind of passive than a lot of other philosophies.
I already don't like it.
I know. But Akira Kurosawa did. So.
Okay. All right then.
So, the samurais did.
I'm about to say that's twice on two different podcasts that we're talking about.
I think we need to go to Blockbuster and rent some movies. 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
These people that are seeking asylum, I think we have every right and every capability to welcome them. And anybody... Okay, so here's the big thing that I really wanted to talk about is there's such an uproar over troops being sent down there.
Oh, yeah.
The military is going to be going down.
Right. So...
And that's going to happen.
I have mixed feelings about it because... one, it's going to cost a crap load of money, and again, it's supposed to be a conservative value that we save money. Second of all, there's a constitutional concept called posse comitatus, where
how is that?
Posse comitatus.
Hakuna Matata to you, buddy.
Yeah. So basically, it says that the United States military cannot act as a police force against its own citizens.
Soldiers can't arrest people.
However, these won't be our citizens, right? So they can protect the border. But the way we do that is that we use the National Guard and the reserves. So the National Guard is there to protect the border. So actually, the governors should be doing this. And the last time that Trump talked about doing this,
how'd the governors react?
half of the governors, even Republican governors, were like,
yeah,
no thanks.
They're like, dude,
middle finger
what's
time.
wrong with you?
We're not doing that.
So let's just say that, right, because we are broadcasting currently from Tucson, Arizona, which is
close to the border.
Gosh, we are a border town. I mean,
we're pretty close. I wouldn't say we're a border town, but we're close.
We're closer to
Nogales is a border town.
We're closer to Mexico than we are Colorado. So,
I'm not saying anything bad about Colorado. My father-in-law will kill me.
I love Colorado. They got legalized weed and everything.
It's cold.
Yeah, so what? Oh, but the Broncos, they let go of Demaryius Thomas. Elway, are you just throwing in the towel? I mean, is this...
Nah, Elway's smart. He's not like Gruden.
No,
so I know we're not supposed to talk about we're talking about something else, but
they didn't even let Gruden take the Wonderlic test.
Listen to me. Listen, if you are the Oakland / soon to be Las Vegas Raiders management and ownership, you're already screwy. But fire John Gruden yesterday. I don't know what you're thinking. $10 million for this guy who hasn't coached in 10 years, and he's just selling every player for first-round draft choices. He was on so many Corona
banners out here outside the bar. He was there. He must be good at something.
For first-round draft choices that you don't even know what's going to happen with them.
If you're just tuning in, we are talking about Gruden going down to the border and protecting us from
from the caravan.
From the
We're going to send the Raiders. Like, can we send the Raiders instead of the troops?
No. I want the troops there. And here's why.
I think we could have sent the Raiders if they would have kept Khalil Mack.
I'm having more fun. I don't care what else happens. I've had a great podcast so far.
That's because we haven't been able to see your right hand the entire time.
It's busy. I'm all for the troops actually going down to the border, and here's why. The active military service is a far more diverse compendium of humanity than any trigger-happy Nogales sheriff's deputy kind of
but see, here's the problem. We have Customs and Border Protection. We've got Border Patrol, and they are trained in this. Most of them speak Spanish. Most of them, or I shouldn't even just say Spanish, they speak the language of the border that they're guarding. All right?
Correct.
So, like the guys up north, they speak Canadian. I just wanted to say that. They speak Canadian.
Hey, you got that salmon in a beaver pelt, eh?
But no, but
you could have claimed it?
They are law enforcement officers. They understand. They have a very specific legal basis for their quote-unquote rules of engagement.
It's their own specific task
I think
force.
the problem with exposing the troops to that is, one, you're right, they can't arrest people. Two, although they can detain them.
Yeah, but detainment is different than arrest.
You're putting them in a situation where, there's a potential that one of them could get killed, or somebody from a migrant could get killed.
I'd rather send troops down to the Mexican border than to send them over.
They're not trained for it. I'm telling you, they're not trained for it.
I'm not disagreeing with that, okay, first of all. But I would rather train them then to do that job than to send them over to guard poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Well, like I said, most of the governors in those border states are going to disagree with you because they don't want to foot the bill.
Well, then there's got to be some sort of concession.
It's not even about concession. It's about policy. Congress needs to get off their ass And this is why everybody should vote. If you haven't already voted by absentee ballot or mail-in ballot,
Early
please,
ballots, I did.
Make
Green
sure
envelopes are great.
get on the interwebs right now. Forget about what we're talking about. Look at your phone. Look at your tablet, your iPad.
Open up another tab.
Whatever.
Keep this playing.
That's true.
Open up another tab.
And go to one of the billions of websites that will tell you exactly where your polling place is, and go on Tuesday. Go on Tuesday.
Usually when you re-up your car registration online or your ID, there's a little box, a little field at the bottom that says, yeah, you know what, I'm going to register me to vote as well.
Right.
And all it is one click of the mouse or tap of the finger or
But
whatever you have.
The ship has sailed on registration. You actually have to show up to the polls if you haven't mailed your...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
If
just
you
saying
haven't
for
mailed your
future-
ballot in, it's already too late for that, too. Although, depending on the state, some states will count ballots up until the point that they... As long as they're postmarked before the date of the election,
right,
they will continue to count them. But most states, if they haven't arrived on the day of, they don't get counted.
Getting back to the policy of our friends to the south, okay, so what's this? Why are all these people fleeing? First of all, of course, it's because of the violence and the breakdown of civility in general, of all basic things we take for granted, like running water, electricity, toilet paper, and all this shit.
Right. So they're poor. They're being
nothing.
exploited. They're being killed.
These people aren't coming up here to rape and kill. These are families.
Yeah, they're coming up here because they've been raped and killed.
Yeah.
So. And again, I'm not saying each and every one of them is this,
Not each one is a sob story.
Right,
But there's enough of them to where...
I'm sure the caravan is full of pickpockets and pedophiles and, just plain old assholes.
Humans are going to be humans
right,
no matter
humans
what kind
are
of
going
group.
to be humans, but I don't know at what point we stopped being America. When did we stop,
America...
adhering to the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty? Send me your downtrodden, your weak, and your poor, and your sick. Send them to us because that's what America is made out of. When did we stop doing that?
I think America is so great that not even the president can stop it, personally. And you're going to find,
I don't think the president's a problem. I mean, we
well,
need to get rid of him.
But it's a symptom of a deeper disease.
The deeper disease is the 1/3 of America that supports it.
Well, and that's just nothing but fucking ignorance and white supremacy, which,
I'm sorry. Just white supremacy. I know.
But there's a lot of that going on, and it needs to be fucking stopped.
Every race, every creed, color, sexuality, income level that voted for Trump and continue to support him vehemently.
Yeah. Well, he's a grifter, and grifters are good at their job.
Apparently.
I mean, people say he's not a politician. I'm sorry, he is now. I mean, you can't take a pickle and make it a cucumber again. Okay?
It reminds me of the CNN commercial about the apple. It's like, this is an apple. And it's always going to be an apple.
Yeah.
And there may be people that come up and tell you that it's not an apple. There may be 10,000 voices screaming that it's not an apple.
But it's an apple.
But it's a fucking apple.
Well,
Eve.
I thought it was Lilith. But again, I've read way too many books.
That's not possible.
Okay. I think that soldiers are more empathetic than your modern police officer, first of all. I think soldiers have more empathy than politicians.
Yeah, but see,
thanks to the Nuremberg trials, I don't think that these soldiers do have to follow a shitty order. I don't think they will fire on people throwing rocks at them.
The problem is you have to come up with rules of engagement. The problem is you can't arrest people. The problem is you're armed with, weapons of war as opposed to weapons that are for law enforcement. And sometimes there's only semantic differences between those.
Sure.
But a Border Patrol agent who is a federal agent, that he is a law enforcement officer.
Right.
And he is there to enforce the border laws. And he is also there to understand that, okay, when you're seeking asylum, we take you to a holding area and we interview you and we vet you and we talk to you. You know, we don't shoot you in the face. And the problem is...
An ideal situation,
And the
correct.
problem is, I'm not saying soldiers would do that. They wouldn't. But the problem is the soldiers are like, okay, we're here on the border. I've got a loaded M4 and, you know, there's a bunch of people coming at me. What do I do? And you can't train that. I just don't think you can train that.
What's your opinion?
In a matter of weeks.
And this is, I mean, to our listeners and the shadowy NSA agents that are listening to our podcast right now.
Jim Clapper will tell you you're wrong about that.
Who's Jim Clapper?
Jim Clapper is a former DNI. He's a longtime intelligence officer. He's on Trump's hate list. But I'm currently reading his book, and he vehemently denies that the NSA is spying on everyone in the United States.
They don't have the time or money.
Right. And that's exactly what he says. He goes, there aren't enough people to spy on all of the people.
That's always been, and I think it was the Nixon era that really kind of espoused this idea that, you know, there's devices in your TVs and shit like that are listening to you. No, you're just... Quit smoking weed.
Again, that's...
Quit smoking weed for 5 seconds.
No, that was my message
Put
last
down
week. You can't steal my message.
I'm sorry, weed affects memory. I can't. And I would never remember that good anyways. But, what were we talking about?
We were talking about you smoking a lot of
I
weed.
used to do a podcast with a guy like, looked like you. So do you think that soldiers are better trained than law enforcement? Than
It's
you're
not
like
better
a
or
local
worse. It's
PD?
different.
But it's a
They're
difference.
trained to do different things.
Well, what's the main difference then? I mean, what? Okay, so a daily beat for a cop and a daily beat for a soldier.
This is a perfect place to explain. We can go back to when I was talking about we can go back to when I was talking about the elements of a crime.
Okay.
And law enforcement officers are trained, and specialized law enforcement officers like Customs and Border Patrol agents are trained in the law that pertains to what they're going to be doing, which is protecting our border. So they know what they're doing. They know when they can use deadly force.
Applicable scenarios.
They know when you come, what documentation you have to have, what you have to say, what you have to prove, where they're going to go. They know the procedures and the logistics, and they are trained for it. You can't just say to
About how
to
long
guys,
does that training take, do you think?
Oh, God. FLUTC itself, I think, it's like 20 weeks.
Really?
And that's
And it's probably a pretty crammed curriculum, like an accelerated course kind of.
Yeah.
That's all you do is eat and breathe.
Right, and then, but it's not just that 20 weeks. That's like an academy.
Sure.
It's constant. It's ongoing.
It's evolving.
You're going to have a field training period where you're partnered with a senior agent. And
I didn't even think about that because as relations change between borders, you know, so the officials that monitor the border they have to keep up with the current policy.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. New president, new policies. You could just have a change at the.
What it looks like when I learn something.
At the very, very, very small structural level. It's like you get a new sergeant, and the new sergeant says, "Okay, everybody's going to wear their hats." Or everybody's going to write in black ink.
Right.
And I don't want to see, anything in blue ink, or I'm just going to reject it.
Sure.
So there's ongoing. There's the initial education. There's the ongoing education. There's changes in policy, and all of that is their job as professionals to keep up with. Soldiers have the same type of things, but for war. So, and then we're also talking about, again, these are going to be National Guard troops. So 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. You can't tell me that you're going to be able to train soldiers to go down there and police the border without having an incident where one of them gets killed or they kill a migrant and it's unjustified.
Well, then why not just make military service compulsory? Like they do in Scandinavian countries.
And they do in Israel.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, once you turn 18...
And they did in Starship Troopers. Well, it wasn't... In Starship Troopers, it actually wasn't compulsory. It was, if you wanted to be a citizen, you had to, you know... And I was a little fascist, but I kind of liked it.
All hail Elron. Lord Zeno with your, what is it, golden B-52s?
No, you're conflating things. You're conflating Battlefield Earth with Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers.
Oh, was it Heinlein that wrote
yeah,
Starship
Heinlein
Troopers?
wrote Starship Troopers.
I was thinking
It's a
Battlefield
classic.
Earth. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I know Heinlein.
Yeah,
He
you
wrote
better know
Stranger in a
Heinlein.
Strange
He's awesome.
Land. I grok that.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Okay.
He's a great author.
I am so sorry, Adrian and everybody else. I messed up a sci-fi reference. I'm going to have to burn that tattoo off now. But anyways, so you're saying that the same training is not applicable across the board.
Right.
It's not. There's no quick salve or Band-Aid that can just train people how to be.
No.
How
And
to
if
handle
they want to train special units of the military for that type of
And that's honestly what I think is going to happen.
contingency, then fine. But for me to do that, there has to be a real threat. And I guarantee you, if you ask people at the Pentagon, they're not worried about this caravan.
No, of course not.
The people, do you know about, I think it was during the Obama administration, or it might have been the beginning of the Trump administration, the Pentagon did a study and they came out and said the number one threat to the world is climate change.
Right.
That's the number one threat to the world.
But you can't make
Not
money.
a caravan of 4,500 people.
You can't
who are
make money and
fleeing
you can't
the Cylon tyranny.
And you can't foster news outlets that have commercial ad space. Climate change is not a moneymaker. Yet.
No, in fact, it's
There's
the
no
opposite.
way- there's no way-
It sucks money.
There's no way to capitalize on climate change, which is the only reason why it's not been addressed publicly in a reasonable. Because every time you have a climate change kind of debate on the news, it's always this panel of supposed experts and talking heads. And at the end of the panel, they're like, well, there's no real scientific data. The Earth's really old. We don't know what's going on. The universe is big. And they kind of just wash it out with like, well, what are you fucking going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are things we
Well,
can
what
do.
you're going to do is not be able to eat and not be able to go outside, and you're going to die.
I think there are very smart people out there. Andrew Yang is one of them. And Elon Musk is one of them. I do think there are ways that you can start companies, or what am I trying to think of? You can start services or utilities or something like that are based off the changing climate, but you just have to foster research and development and science in those areas instead of building bigger bombs and learning new ways to spy on each other. You will have to maybe put some research and development into how to turn all these methane vents that are coming up in the Siberian tundra into energy. The increasing tidal forces on the coast, you can turn that into energy.
And this comes back to the guiding principle for me, and actually for me the mission of this podcast is that we need to shift the conversation from what the current political situations are to how are we going to fix the problems, and what are the problems that are coming in the near future. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect you. But, I've got a niece. I've got a grandniece. She's 4 years old. Well, she's 3. She's going to be 4 next week. And it's going to affect her.
Absolutely, and if you do care about the future, if you care about anything other than 3 feet outside of yourself, you should be looking at some of these automation
We all
problems.
should be looking, and it's not just automation. Like you said, it's automation, it's climate change. It's how do we get energy independent. It's, and that's always been a foreign policy issue, and people don't get that's energy independence is a foreign policy issue. We talked about it when we talked about Jamal Khashoggi getting killed.
True.
We're not just getting killed, getting mutilated.
Just like straight up like bricktop style, like
Yeah.
getting fed to pigs and shit.
Yeah, it was like,
Bonesaw is a drinking game. Sorry.
it's like Mason Verger all over
Yeah.
again.
But that is our mission statement. You're absolutely right. Is to kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to the actual threats, not just to any kind of ideal, but to humanity itself. I think you and I are both kind of have a responsibility within us to try to help and educate people about what the real problems are and how to get along on the small stuff and try to attack the bigger stuff together.
Yeah, and I think there's still a whole lot of conversation left because I know you wanted to hit on some things that you specifically saw on social media this week. Not so much about stories, but about the way that we interact with each other. So perhaps that's a good idea for a future podcast.
Indeed.
I once again thank you, Guitar Center, Gilbert. You hooked us up big time. EJ Loveris and all of Heart and Soul Band here in Tucson, Arizona.
We need to get them on the show.
Yeah, we do. You hooked us up big time. And of course, Famous Sam's Golf Links and Kolb, 7129 East Golf Links in Tucson, Arizona. Great place, man.
We've annexed their billiard hall for a little while today. We're gonna get going here, but thank you guys so much for listening to us. We've had a blast. Make sure you like and share us on the social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you have anything to say, give us an email.
Yeah, please share, like, and if you've been on the show or if you know somebody who's been on the show, this is what we need from you. We need you to participate. We need you to like our Facebook page, like our Instagram, go to our website, listen to the show, share the show, and make it a bigger thing so we can have a larger conversation.
And Ace, I've had a real blast with you today. I know you've been hanging out with me
awesome.
a long time today, but I love it, and I couldn't imagine a better Saturday than hanging out and talking current events with you. School of Hard Thoughts podcast from Famous Sam's, Tucson, Arizona. We love you guys.
And here's praying that YouTube works.
Yes.
I love you, Tracy.
Okay.